All right, ready to dive deep into some profound stuff today?
Always.
Let's get into it then, huh? The book of Job, specifically chapters 13 through 15. Our listener sent these in about a man, Job, facing unimaginable suffering, and his friend, Eliphaz, trying to offer comfort.
Yeah. But instead of finding like clear-cut answers, these chapters really just kind of plunge us headfirst into these raw emotions, questioning God, limits of human understanding, that whole fleeting nature of life thing.
I mean, it's interesting, the text doesn't shy away at all from that rawness of questioning your faith in the face of just unbelievable pain.
Absolutely. We see Job's anger, but it's deeper than anger. It's more like this desperate yearning, to just understand why him, why this suffering.
And that yearning just completely leaps out at you in chapter 13. He's not just like dismissing his friend's words. He's comparing them to doctors offering ashes as medicine.
Correct.
That deeper frustration, when words just aren't enough.
It's in that frustration that we see Job's boldness, though. He desires to argue his case directly with God.
I mean, that's pretty daring, considering, he recognizes how powerful God is.
He even says, though he slay me, yet will I trust him.
Wow. Chills. Literal chills. To cling to trust while simultaneously challenging the source of your pain, that's such a human paradox. So much about faith is complex.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he's willing to risk it all.
Yeah.
Take his flesh in his teeth to get to the truth.
That's some powerful imagery right there. Makes you think. Makes a struggle relatable, Because honestly, we all grapple with these questions of faith and suffering at some point.
You do.
And then chapter 14, things kind of shift, don't they?
They do.
We go from this fiery defiance, challenging God, to a somber reflection on how brief life really is. Job compares us to flowers that wither quickly,
Yeah.
and then he contrasts that with the tree that can sprout again. Is that contrast significant, you think?
It speaks to that deep longing we have, I think, for renewal, for permanence. And it clashes so hard with the reality of, of death. It's like Job is yearning for that chance, that second chance. But it feels completely unattainable.
So he's yearning for something beyond the fleeting nature of our existence, something more, something lasting.
Yeah.
And then it just gets so poignant, his plea to God to be remembered, even after death.
It adds this whole other layer to his struggle. It reveals that desire for his life to have lasting meaning in a world where everything just feels temporary.
Precisely. And then chapter 15 rolls around, Eliphaz comes in, and he's got a whole different perspective. He's questioning Job's whole approach, accusing him of arrogance, suggesting he's blocking his connection with God. He even says that humans, born of woman, can't be truly pure.
Right.
In God's eyes. That's a bold statement, wouldn't you say?
Very bold.
Yeah.
And to understand it, I think we need to consider the context. Eliphaz is presenting a very specific theological perspective, prevalent at the time, viewing suffering as a consequence of sin.
So it's not just a clash of personalities. We're seeing a clash of worldviews here.
Absolutely.
A clash of how we understand God's role in all this. And then Eliphaz paints this picture, vivid picture, of the wicked person's life filled with fear, destruction, and ultimately just emptiness.
Illustrating those consequences of sin, and maybe suggesting that Job's suffering fits in there somewhere.
But what's interesting is that both Job and Eliphaz, they both use these powerful images, don't they, to get their points across. Job draws on the natural world, his own pain, and Eliphaz, he's focused on the consequences of wickedness.
Yeah.
I wonder, do those contrasting approaches reflect their internal states? Their emotional states, or even how they relate to God in the midst of suffering?
That's a very interesting thought. Their choice of imagery, it offers a window, doesn't it, into their psychological and spiritual frameworks. And through these contrasting viewpoints, we're invited to grapple with these huge mysteries: life, death, justice, the meaning of suffering.
These are questions for everyone.
They are.
So we've got Job wrestling with this existential pain, longing for meaning, challenging God. And then Eliphaz, he's presenting that more traditional view. Suffering as consequence. Such a fascinating juxtaposition.
It is. And as we continue this deep dive, we'll see how these perspectives unfold, deepening the complexity of this timeless story.
We left off with Eliphaz, right? Pretty sure he was suggesting that Job's suffering was, a consequence of some hidden wrongdoing.
Yeah.
But does Job buy it? I mean, does he accept that explanation?
He does not. In chapter 16, Job straight up rejects Eliphaz's arguments, throws them right back at him with amplified frustration. He says his friend's words, they're like wind, offering no comfort. It's like their attempts to explain it all just make him feel more isolated.
So he's reached a breaking point, not just physically.
Oh, yeah. Emotionally, spiritually, the whole package.
He feels mocked, betrayed, alone in his pain.
And he doesn't hold back. When describing how deep that suffering goes, sackcloth on his skin, face red from weeping, Job's vulnerability, it's palpable.
He even says to God, "You have turned against me. You've become my enemy."
Right.
Whoa, that's not just questioning anymore. It's an accusation.
But even within that accusation, there's a glimmer of that deep faith that still has him. It's like by confronting God, he's also clinging to the belief that God is there, even in the midst of his suffering.
He's demanding answers, a fair trial, to present his case before God.
It's like his understanding of justice. It extends beyond us. Beyond humans, he's seeking a cosmic reckoning.
This isn't just personal for him. It's cosmic injustice. That demands to be acknowledged.
Yeah. He's wrestling with so much physical pain.
Yeah.
The psychological and spiritual anguish of feeling abandoned by God, misunderstood by his friends.
In chapter 17, that yearning for understanding, it intensifies.
It does.
He wants someone, anyone, to see his pain, validate his experience. He even talks about putting up a guarantee.
Like a legal bond.
To prove his innocence.
It's like a powerful statement.
Yes.
Self-assurance. Job is completely unwavering in his conviction that he doesn't deserve this. He knows his own heart, and that fuels his plea for recognition.
But his pleas fall on deaf ears. His friends, still not convinced. And Job is pushed deeper into despair.
He even talks about descending to Sheol.
The realm of the dead.
Yeah, a place with no hope, no light.
Wow. Sheol wasn't just, physical death. It was a shadowy realm of silence, oblivion, the ultimate separation from God, from the living.
Right.
So when Job talks about Sheol, that speaks volumes about his despair.
Absolutely.
It's like even death offers no solace. The imagery is so heavy.
Reflecting the weight of his emotional state.
Yeah. But then, a glimmer of hope. In chapter 19, Job declares, "I know that my Redeemer lives and that in the end he will stand on the earth." It's like this burst of light, piercing through the darkness.
Powerful declaration.
What do you think it means? Foreshadowing resurrection. Or maybe it's more metaphorical. Faith in God's ultimate justice.
That question has puzzled theologians and scholars for centuries. Some see it as a pre-Christian idea of resurrection. Others see it as an affirmation of God's vindication, a belief that goes beyond what we can understand.
Regardless, it's a pivotal moment in Job's journey. He's questioning, he's in despair, but he still clings to hope. He hasn't abandoned his faith.
Not completely. It reminds us that even in the darkest times, when questions are bigger than answers and pain just threatens to consume you, the possibility for hope, it remains.
Job shows us that faith doesn't require blind acceptance. It can coexist with doubt, anger, yearning for understanding.
A very human portrayal of faith, one that I think resonates with all of us when we wrestle with life's complexities.
But the debate isn't over. How does Eliphaz respond to all this? To Job's conviction? To that glimmer of hope?
That's what we'll pick up in part 3. We'll see how Eliphaz reacts to Job's latest outburst and explore how these clashing viewpoints shed light on the questions that challenge and inspire us today.
So we've seen Job's pain, raw and real, his unwavering conviction, and that glimmer of hope that he's holding on to.
Yeah.
But Eliphaz, well, the debate with him isn't over yet. How does he respond to Job's powerful declaration?
Chapter 20. Eliphaz isn't swayed, not one bit. But Job's passionate, defense of himself. Instead of acknowledging the pain, he just digs in deeper, doubles down on those arguments, insists that the wicked, they might seem to prosper for a while, but their joy, it's fleeting.
He's really holding on to that worldview, huh?
He is.
He paints this picture of the wicked person's downfall, wealth vanishing, enemies rejoicing, their memory cursed. Is he saying this is Job's fate?
It's hard to say for sure, but he's definitely implying that Job's suffering, it fits into his idea of, divine justice.
So he believes that suffering, it's a direct consequence of sin, that eventually everyone gets what they deserve.
Yeah. That was a deeply embedded concept back then, divine retribution.
But Job's experience challenges that neat and tidy explanation.
I guess.
How does Job respond to Eliphaz, clinging to that worldview?
Job, he doesn't hold back.
Yeah.
Chapter 21. He delivers this powerful rebuttal, points out that in reality, wicked people, they often live long lives, prosperous lives, and they die peacefully, never facing the consequences.
So he's like breaking open Eliphaz's little theological box,
He is.
presenting a different reality, one that doesn't fit into that simple notion of divine retribution.
Absolutely.
And this is bigger than just like a theological debate. This is about how we understand the world, God's role in it all.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
Job forces us to grapple with some hard truths, that sometimes bad things happen to good people, and there's not always an explanation.
He's saying life is complex, look beyond the simple answers. And the book of Job, it doesn't shy away from these questions. It wants us to wrestle with them right alongside Job, to feel his pain, to acknowledge the limits of what we can understand.
Right.
It's saying that the search for meaning when you're facing suffering, it's a journey, not a destination.
It is.
The book of Job isn't about those easy answers or neat solutions. It wants to start a bigger conversation, one that acknowledges how complex life is and how mysterious God's presence can be in the midst of pain.
I like that, the mystery of God's presence.
So we've reached the end of our deep dive into chapters 13 through 15, and we're left with, well, more questions than answers, but maybe that's the point. Maybe it's about the journey itself, the wrestling, the questioning. What do you think? How do these chapters speak to you, to your experiences, your understanding of faith and suffering?
What if you were in Job's shoes? How would you handle that tension, the pain you're experiencing, but still believing in a God who's just and powerful? Something to think about as we step away from this ancient text and back into our lives.
The book of Job, it still has so much to say centuries later. It reminds us that searching for meaning, for purpose, it's a lifelong thing. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.
Welcome to Charlie and Mia's podcast. We're embarking on an exciting journey to read through the entire Bible in just 1 year. Every day, we dive into Scripture, exploring its meanings and how it applies to our lives today. We invite you to join us on this incredible adventure of learning and discovery. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode.